Howdy, Savage Pathfinders! Welcome to a spooky season edition of our wonderful live streaming. We have today the line developer for Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, Michael Barbeau. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, everyone.
So, Mike, we are, I mean, we haven't gotten ready yet. We are on the third adventure path converted Carrion Crown. Pretty excited for that one. It definitely fits the spooky season for Halloween. It is variously labeled as Pathfinder's spookiest adventure path. And so we are excited that you got to develop that for us, all while doing Doomguard and a bunch of other fun stuff for the main Savage Worlds lines, like all our board game stuff. So you've been busy.
A little bit. I'm not going to lie with how happy, though, when we looked at the calendar and saw the Carrion Crown was coming, to the Kickstarter in the October season, because it just fits so perfectly, right? And so, yeah, I was really happy to see that come alive.
Yeah, no, really good timing. So it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to ask you about your Halloween plans. While you think about that, let me show the audience what the actual campaign looks like for a hot second, because there is a cool thing that we're doing for this campaign that we haven't been able to do before. Well, we have, but for all of you out there who are original Pathfinder players, Paizo never put out a pawn set for Carrion Crown. So they have graciously allowed us to create a massive pawn set, 10 full sheets of die-cut full-color pawns for Carrion Crown using their amazing art. We might have some surprises there too. But that is its own pledge level if you are playing in the Pathfinder system and want to bring pawns to your game, or you just like collecting pawns. That is $40. And then the Pathfinder, the Carrion Crown box set in digital format is $50. If you're just getting the box set to run the 6-book adventure path, that's $100. And then if you want that and the pawns, it's $125. So you get a pretty good discount there for getting both. And then there are at least 11 of you out there who are brand new to Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. We've got a pledge level, which is basically everything we make for the line that is currently in print and all the good stuff. And that is a whopping $650, but it is a good deal off of the price you pay to pick it up all separately. And it is available in the Easy Pay 4-month payments of just $162.50. So that's what's available for the campaign. The story's pretty cool. I like the graphics. There's some definite, I don't know, we didn't put the one on the page that Mike and I were talking about backstage. There's definitely like the Cthulhu-esque, mind-blowing, literally image. I think it's on some of our socials, but the little background we're using on the promo for this one, the screen you just saw, that's like the second stage xenomorph of that fun, wormy.
It really kind of is, right? Because it's this thing that gets implanted in you, and then when it grows to adulthood, it explodes your head, or explodes the bad guy's head maybe when you beat him, and then you have to fight the head tentacle version, unless it turns into the giant god creature that has a chance to. But again, I don't think we have that picture up here, but it's a fun little creature kind of modifier. So
see, now I've got to go play. So I'm going to go see if I can dig up that image to throw up on the screen. And so I'm going to ask you your first question. What are you doing for Halloween? Because that's coming up
So I actually run a yearly Halloween game here at my house. A group of friends, we get together. Yes, it's Savage Worlds. And usually I'll do some kind of theme. It'll either be like sci-fi or modern horror. And this year I am running a no pun intended for other stuff, but a Kingmaker style game in which everybody is kind of in charge of their own nation, and they're vying for rulership of the entire region. And so they have to work together in game, but they have little basically adventure cards. And I call it their black bennies, but basically instead of giving you a reroll, you can force another player to fail on a check. You give them the black Benny, but the whole thing is the cards and the bennies are not role play based, so they still have to role play it because nobody wants to be ruled by somebody who's going to stab you in the back every time, you know. And so yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. I think everybody will have a blast. But yeah, that's my my plan. We're even using both the fantasy companion and the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds characters that come in the little archetype set. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. It's all seasoned.
Ooh, that sounds fantastic. The I don't think I'm going to go out. I don't think I'm going to get dressed up, but I bought pumpkins for the first time in years, and we're going to carve pumpkins tonight. So we'll have Jeff, me and my decrepit old man who has one good eye because he got the cataract surgery done 2 weeks ago, and then tomorrow morning he gets the other cataract surgery. It's like, what should we do now that you can see something? Let's get like knives and other things involved, like sharp utensils, and
let's do the messiest thing for the holiday season,
right? Yeah. Let's just do the most dangerous thing. But now, congratulations on your new eyes. Here's some knives, and let's make a mess of pumpkins. So the dogs will have a field day of us just kind of taking the pumpkins. So the trick-or-treaters who come around will be I don't know. Do kids get enamored with carving pumpkins? I mean, they better be. I'm just gonna say that. I want rave reviews from the little kindergartners coming over, or like they get the tiny size, not the like real size bars. I'll have to have like two bowls of candy, and which is dangerous. But
I keep seeing this trend where people like put a couple potatoes in the bucket, and like the potatoes are always the first thing to go. And so I kind of want to see if that actually happens.
Yeah, I'm not for like we need to offer a healthy alternative. Like that's a good way of getting your house like rocks thrown through your windows. I think we owe it to the children to give them the candy that they come for. And it is kind of funny though. Like I bought a bag at Walmart and I bought a bag at Costco, and both cost like $25. And the gentrification in the Costco bag is real. Like they offer the larger, that's not the full size, it's like their larger size. I'm like, wow, Costco is definitely like, they're going for the value proposition versus the Walmart bag. But I'm just going to eat all the candy anyways. Let's be real. Like there's going to be like 10 kids who come over, and then, I'll just have worse diabetes next month. But anyways, on to like the cool stuff. We've got a lot of really fun questions. I got one for you before I start throwing up some questions from the chat, but there's a bunch of questions in the chat. Guys, throw them in there. We'll get them taken care of and throw them at Mike. But the first one I wanted to kind of go over is so there's like one big observation about the original, and this might be hopefully different in Savage Worlds, is that the undead in Pathfinder 1E really aren't susceptible to the mind powers and persuasion kind of tricks that we have in Savage Worlds as much. So I think some folks initially thought like some of the character classes were a little underutilized because of that. So how did you address that in the Savage Worlds version?
So you're absolutely right on that. And basically anybody who did like illusionist or any kind of mind control or bard or witch, they had that issue because it's just kind of a general mindless built-in aspect of the undead. And funnily enough, I didn't have to do much. Like it affects them, right? So we were playtesting, right? And I had somebody, he's one of the playtesters, who made a goblin who he described as being Scrappy-Doo as the concept. And so we wanted to do all these social stuff, and we were into part of the game, and I'm like, so is there a reason you're not using these edges and skills that you took? And he's like, oh well, they're undead. And I'm like, man, you are a slab of meat that they want to love. Taunt the crap out of them, lure them to you, make them distracted. And so that's really the biggest thing. Is not there are some things that are immune to intimidate and fear, right? But there's other social skills and other things you can do to mess with them. Having that halfling that's the bite-sized snack for the zombie, or having that half orc that goes against the vanity of the intelligent white, stuff like that you can just do and really manipulate things. And frankly, I think it's a lot of fun doing it as well, right? As you're taunting some undead creature that maybe has the ability to paralyze you before eating you, and suddenly you have to live up to your taunts. We actually had an instance in which said player, he did the taunt, and then I won't say the creature because I don't want to do spoilers, but the next round he just started swinging at him, hit him hard, did 2 wounds right away, and he's like, "Holy crap, why?" And I'm like, "You got what you wanted." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, absolutely, this is what I wanted." My character is saying, "Oh, why?" And so it's that kind of thing. So yeah, be as social as you want, manipulate, intimidate, taunt, whatever you have to do, make them distracted, vulnerable. Yeah, all of that, and that addresses what I think is probably the heaviest criticism that it faced over the years, because it's an undead campaign, right? Like there's a lot of undead. That's how it's going to be, and so you just have to address it.
Yeah, no, good answer. And like that's the thing is I think that's the thing I like the most about Pathfinder Savage Worlds is same great Galarian, but all the fun stuff you can do in Savage Worlds and the assumptions you make about player interaction and interludes and setting each other up for success and tests are all available, which in some ways kind of breaks the traditional fantasy mold, which I think is fantastic. So speaking of breaking, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the other hardest thing, and I'm sure everybody who's going to watch this already knows to do this kind of thing in the game, but I sat there again doing play testing, and I have somebody who hasn't played as much Savage Worlds, and we're going through these events within the story, and I could tell he wants to do something, but he's sitting there quietly and just kind of staring at the table because we use a grid a lot, and he's just kind of quiet, and I'm like, "Hey man, what do you want to do? You haven't spoken up, you haven't jumped in." He's like, "Well, there's this thing I want to do, but I don't know if you'd allow it." And I'm like, "Man, tell me what it is." And sure enough, basically what he wanted to do is jump off a ledge, use his cloak to grab onto something that was flying or some things that were flying and ride them down to the ground. I'm like, "All right, absolutely. That is not a problem. One check." And he's like, "Oh, well, I don't need like a feed or, like it's not like all these other things." Like, "No, man, tell me what you want to do. Let's do it. If you crit fail, it's hilarious. Let's go for it." And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think sometimes people will get stuck in their head. I just, attack. And other times, like, just have a blast, like do this crazy thing. Yeah, so that kind of stuff.
No, that is awesome. So I found the picture of said mind-blowing monster. So this is, I just love that art.
Yeah, that comes up, by the way. That is a thing that will happen.
Oh my god! It's just like,
spoiler alert: losing a head doesn't make it less problematic for fighting it, right? Like,
I love it.
You can't call shot head after that. You can call shot tentacles, but that's it.
Yeah, that one's a good one. Yeah, I mean, that one just gets worse the more you look at it. You're like, oh my god, did I eat today? I don't think I need to eat today. I won't share with everybody what I told Simon what I thought that looked like. So, anyways, right. If you ever had puppies and dewormed them, I'm just saying. So let's get to some fan questions before we throw the rest of mine at you guys. So
see, these always either attempt to make me blush or really hard questions to answer. So we'll see what happens first.
Right. Notice on BackerKit list the player's guide this time around instead of a guide to Usadov or whatever have you. Will this book be intended for players to see this time?
So this was more of a mislabel at the time. So in the past, when we've had the other APs, it was really easy because you kind of stick in one area. Sure, with Curse of the Crimson Throne, you venture out into the wastes and deal with some tribes out there, but you eventually come back to the main city. And so it was really easy for that one. This one, there's a lot more moving around. And so we were having a hard time coming up with the name of it. I think it will probably just turn into being named The Guide to the Carrion Crown, just because this is a question that has come up a few times. And so it'll be very, very much like the other ones. You'll have the little intro in the beginning that'll have like, this is how barbarians kind of fit in. This is how, elves kind of fit in, because you're in a land of horror and undead, right? As you've already noted, you're in Uslev, which is not the nicest place, and so that it's really helpful to fit your characters in. And so yeah, that's kind of where that is.
Awesome. The excellent answer for that. The let's see. Sean Doom's in the chat. Mike, I really like Savage Worlds conversions thus far. With this one, have you been able to keep the difficulty ratchet up for the PCs when they hit mid-high tier so they don't just stomp through the baddies?
So this is an interesting one, and I've spoken with so many people about this. And I've spoken with Clint about it. We actually had a discussion a little while ago when he told me an example of somebody who was able to use their barbarian and go hog wild on a dragon. And it is really interesting and really hard to balance a fight in Savage Worlds. A great example of this is when there are more than one enemy, because it's up to a GM. And I'll actually take a step back and talk. What was it? Not Conan. What was the other one we had? Our fantasy setting that we did for another group, another setting. Oh, Solomon Kane. Somebody got it. Yeah, Solomon Kane. Yeah. So I had a GM who was learning Savage Worlds. He was really interested in Solomon Kane. He definitely wanted to do it. And I was the most, hey, there we go, Solomon Kane. I was the most experienced player there. And so to try to help other players learn how to do things, I would lead by example. So I would wild attack, multi-attack, take out a few things. Now I got a little too zealous, and we got into this big fight in which the king and his eagle are there, and he's got all these guards kind of nice, all these soldiers around you, which are really mediocre. And so the next action was they all wild attack, multi-attack the party. And then I was like, all right, well, here's the thing you didn't take into account, and it's gang up and wild attack. And so it's like, all right, all of these guys are hitting every character on a 2 twice. And yeah, so it gets kind of crazy. So the thing I want to say here is, and this comes up with, I think, spending bennies as a GM. It's not specifically about making it so that the players can't stomp down a baddie, right? Like the part of FFF is it doesn't take 10 rounds to kill a baddie. What I think changes that up is, as a GM, using like desperate attack on a dragon, right? He's D12 plus 6. Let's drop that to D12 plus 2. Get +4 to your attack. Wild attack, or not wild attack, but attack, and do heavy damage. Put the players on their heels a lot because they've got the resources to fight back. But that -1, -2, -3 to all your rolls because you took a heavy injury, that's where it gets really dangerous. And so be on the offense when you're running these. And the last thing I will say is one of the things I'm trying to include in these books as well is a hard mode option. So there'll be like a little box. It'll say to increase difficulty, you can do X. And in one instance, there is a chance that you're going through and you come across this encounter, which can put people to sleep, and the player should be dealing with this issue. But there's maybe a small area nearby where there's some burning undead that, hey, they walk in, one of your players is asleep, they start the fight where people are unconscious, and it gets much harder. So I'm trying to provide tips as well for how these fights have gone, because I've run these fights a ton. And anytime a fight goes down in one round and it's not fun, that's generally kind of gotten nixed or bumped for some other mechanic. Whereas it's more about these cool epic fights, stuff like that.
Nice. I just want to share this cool comment. In their playthrough from Carrion Crown, they played and for Pathfinder, they played a Dampier Sin Eater, and the Galarian version of Vampire Hunter D. And the Sway version, they're going to play a Frankenstein monster. So
my question is, if you got to book 5, how did you interact with the NPC who wants to hang out with you? Just curious.
I like big constructs and I cannot lie.
There's it's so fun doing some of these tests too, because when you're playtesting, you'll see players do things that you just do not see coming. And so things will hit you out of the woodwork where it's like, hey, here's this NPC you can interact with and give you info. And they're like, no. 4 games back, you said we were supposed to protect them, by this other character, and we trust that other character. So we're locking this character in their room while we go fight. And I'm like, all right, well, it's gonna be a little bit harder.
Hey, at least players who read the backstory and remember what you did last week, you are 50% better than every other gaming group. So that is awesome. Yeah, so
actually, I throw this out to every GM. When I sit down at the table, I say, who wants to recap? And the player who does the recap gets an extra starting Benny.
Yeah.
And that has upped the players speaking out a lot more than anything else, and kind of remembering the game. And it helps pull out like kind of the introverts a little bit more as well.
No, good question. So right before that one though, can players read the player's guide for this without getting spoilers, or does the GM have to subset it?
There is a lot of information about areas, religions. I think there's a good amount that you can read without getting spoilers. You may know that a certain religion comes up later, or that certain towns exist and are going to come up, but I don't think it's that big of a thing. It's a lot of resources to read, especially when you're in a town, to know where things are, who people are, things like that. I would have to double check over everything, right? Because I don't want to say 100% without a doubt, and I missed the one paragraph that you end up reading, and it's a spoiler, because that is possible. But I think overall, it provides you with a bit of knowledge, but nothing that's overly like, I need to make this choice, and this is going to be the next thing that comes up.
Cool, awesome. Okay, so carry on with the previous question. Working out the last question. Can the big bad still be challenging without all the big bars, all having unstoppable and the creature ability for all the big bars?
All the big bars.
I'm thinking big bads. That is what my guess.
I will say not everything has unstoppable. I know there are players that dislike it and players that love it. There are different routes that I have tried to do with some of the encounters, to not have to use it as much. But that being said, I have actually found that one of the things that works best on a bad guy is quick. Going first is the bad guy group is kind of the biggest thing in almost any big fight, right? The moment they output something before you go is a huge thing. And so I'm not saying every bad guy has quick. I'm simply saying there are different ways to make bad guys more focused. The other thing is I try to avoid unstoppable too if something has a really high toughness. So for example, there's a creature in Curse that's like the corpse orgy, and it's got, I think, a 20 toughness with 8 armor. And I was talking to somebody about this online, and the goal for that creature, like number of attacks is almost always king in any game, right? It's called action economy. Most players know this. But being able to look at something, take your great axe that has keen on it with, I think, AP 5 at that point, look at this thing and take it down in one hit while everybody's just banging off of it, feels amazing as that player. And so the goal is to try to find things that make players feel epic. And so maybe some things are unstoppable, maybe some things just have more wounds or are more evasive, that have different answers that you have to find. So I think that's the best answer I can give. I know it's not as direct as a yes or no, but hopefully that answered some for you.
Cool. There are a bunch of questions in the chat about VTT, so I'll take that one because we had a big old meeting about it this morning. So the hard thing about doing VTT for these adventure paths is that they weren't designed for VTT play. So they were designed in an era decades before people had were thinking about the screen resolution and the gridding and all the stuff that is kind of the layers and the effects and the walls that are kind of expected for VTT products. And so unlike the amazing books, which still hold up as books, we don't have anything to go off of from Paizo that's VTT quality. So that kind of means, like, do we need to like either recommission art or try to upscale things or redo maps? And that definitely changes the kind of a cost structure and timelines of doing the adventure paths. And I don't know that our sales numbers have shown that we can actually justify doing those. So that's kind of the big thing with Foundry is the how we get those done, like kind of what the overhead is, what we have to pay up front to get those done. So that's the difficult part there. And one of the options we've looked at in the past is like, well, hey, what if we can just kind of like pack some of the assets together so folks can import them into their own VT? We called it like do-it-yourself VTT, and those didn't really sell well, even though they were very cheap. So I think that's kind of our conundrum, is just looking at how the community really, like, how much you really want to spend on a big 6-book kind of VTT package, and not get the kind of same experience you would for campaigns and products that were designed modern so that the maps we make and the encounters, they're all kind of designed with that in mind. So they're much more direct to produce. So that's kind of the big issue we have, is that we'd love to bring everything to VTT, just because why deny a way to play our games? But with converting 7 books worth of stuff, it's not so much the content and the PDF or stuff, but it's if you want to also get the encounters with that, the original material just isn't up to par on that. And so there's not really a whole lot we can do about that, except a really big overhead and kind of redoing that. And then it's not really ours, it's not really Paizo. So that's kind of the big issue we have with the license stuff and doing VTT is
not to speak for anyone, but I would say, don't count it as being a not going to happen, but it is one of those things that just requires a lot of consideration and meetings and thought to go into it, because I mean, we all want to do it right. We all just want to make games that everybody wants to play and have fun in.
Yeah, and the big thing is like crowdfunding is really our most successful sales model, and the VTT doesn't really work with the current crowdfunding schedule unless we're really ahead of the game, like we can be with our own in-house properties, right? So if we want to offer VTT with the Kickstarter, so the problem is, like, the VTT they really can't start their development until the book is done. So until it's like the file we send to the printer, final version 6.2 whatever, expletive, they really can't start until that's the file that we hand over to them. And the issue there is that that kind of extends the development schedule to get the VTT done, and we can't call a campaign delivered until all the rewards are delivered. And because we've got our Kickstarter in the games category limits you to 4, and we've got our 4. If every kind of month or 2 or 3 we tack on to the delivery of a campaign pass when we can deliver the books, it's scary for us. So that just means it's another campaign we can't do. So it's tough trying to find, like, how do we keep the excitement up for that we get during a campaign, but it's just for VTT? Can we go back and do a campaign for the older VTTs? How much would that really have to generate? So all those questions are still on the table. We're thinking about them all the time. We don't want to not do anything, but we are actually a really small company. So folks think we're much bigger than we are. So that's kind of the issue, guys. It's not we had a lot of comments kind of talking about, like, the quality of the original one, and that's the thing, is would you still want to pay the 70 or 80 or whatever the current going rate is for a 6-volume VTT if the maps were all kind of just kind of where they needed to be? And I don't know. I don't think that'd be the case. I think you guys would be upset with that. And but there's not really a way to monetize this. It's not any cheaper just because the maps are worse. That's the problem. Is the stuff that we get is it looks great when we can print their Paizo's amazing art, but that section of it is tough. So that's our VTT question. We're still considering all those things. We always want to look into what we can bring to VTT. So it's just the real part of it is it's a lot easier for us to bring in-house stuff that's designed now today, thinking about the VTT, than it is doing these conversions. So we'll see. The nothing's off the table. And again, we had a hour and a half meeting this morning and just talking about what our options were. And the our good friends at Metamorphic, I think they do a great job. I saw there was some negativity in the comments, guys. That's not it. No one else is doing what we're doing, right? Like we're a small little company, but we're also kind of on the front tip of the spear on doing these VTTs, and especially of like legacy products. And so that's there's just a lot of things that are taking into consideration there. And so we think they do a really good job, but again, it is tough, and we saw how tough it was with Rise of the Rune Lords, and all the extra things we had to do there, and just kind of grappling with 20. It's a legacy product, people love it, but the maps were designed 20 years ago. So when you compare it in your mind to stuff that's brand new, that's where kind of it gets hard for us, and it gets hard for everybody. So that's the answer on that one for now, and we'll get back to all the cool stuff with Carrion Crown. So another question from me, Mr. Mike, is you've worked on a lot of Savage World stuff, and are there any creatures or encounters in Carrion Crown that you think are going to be especially fun for game masters to run, that were challenging to adapt for you or the system? And what are you looking forward to hearing the stories about GMs throwing at their players after they get this in their hands?
Wow. All right, got to go low spoilers here. So there is a lot of chances to kind of think outside the box and kind of work with NPCs and do more social things. The second book actually has quite a bit of investigation and discovery and things like that. And then there are okay, so one example. I'm not going to spoil where this is at, but in one of the playtests, we actually have a group of people. There's some troll hounds on the ground that are being problematic. Some people tried casting silence and made it even harder on the rest of the party. And up top, there's a troll with a big old crossbow. And so they're like, all right, he's shooting at us. Somebody takes an arrow to the chest, not to the knee, so they're still able to adventure. And they're like, all right, we got to deal with this guy. So some start busting open the doors down below, so they can go up there. And the character who is playing, the player is playing a rogue with the Mystic Powers rogue, activates his wall walker, runs up, kind of hides below it. And when it leans over again to fire the heavy crossbow, he uses thievery and just kind of plucks the bolts out of the crossbow. So the troll fails to fire, throws it down. Next round, he goes wild on the rogue, who suffers 2 wounds and a rending attack, so he's starting to bleed out and has to retreat. Meanwhile, the party's going in. There's a spiral staircase going up leading to him, so they start fighting their way past other trolls getting up there. And it, not being able to reach anything, starts going down to confront the other party members. Well, they're sitting there and they're having this standoff because they're having a hard time wounding the troll. And the player goes back up, picks up the crossbow, reloads the crossbow bolt he stole, sneaks down the stairs a little while, and gets the "you dropped this" quote, shoots the troll in the back of the head, spends a conviction on just that shot, and one-shots the troll. And so that is now his trophy bolt. He's taken it out. It's obviously all nasty still, but he has retired that. He's kept the heavy crossbow. But stories like that, being able to witness that was fantastic, right? But seeing players come about these encounters in different ways and try to exploit different avenues, that's what it's all about for me, right? You're trying to tell a story, and players are taking part in it, and that kind of thing just really sticks out. The other kind of thing, this is probably one of my favorite stories of all time for playtesting. In the first book, there's areas where there's numerous holes, right? I won't get into why or where, but trying to use these ranged items. Character who's playing, I think he's got a ranger class edge, but he tries chucking one, misses his target, crit fails, bounce off the wall, goes in the hole. First example of it, right? Later, they're dungeon delving. He lines up another shot, throws it, falls through the grate into another hole. Later, they come across this big spooky encounter, and the only way for him to dodge out of the way of some falling debris is to finally throw himself in a hole. And so it was this culmination of like crit fail, and just success with joy. And so that's what I love to see, people, doing these things and having fun.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get to another question about playtesting, but here's one. I remember these other questions in the previous campaign. So Magnus must be repeat commenter. Mike, you previously stated you like lycanthropes, and you've hinted at making them playable. This person really wants to play a lycanthrope. I'm just saying. Is that something that's going to be included for Carrion Crown?
I mean, there is a book about lycanthropes, and there is a entry in the bestiary for gaining lycanthropy. I would use those two and be a lycanthrope, and fist fight your GM if he doesn't want you to be one. Don't fist fight your GM. Your GM works hard, okay? But yeah, I would bring that up with him. And you spend at least a month in one town in the campaign, so the full moon will come up. But that's between you and your GM. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it in Carrion Crown. Yes, it will tie into a story for sure. But things happen.
Awesome. Plant question, $10 to Cryptbright. Did you know when you were making Savage Worlds Pathfinder that it'd be just such a great drop-in replacement for nearly any 5e Pathfinder content? It's really great. I just wanted to say.
Look, I still play some Pathfinder, first edition, not second edition, so I enjoy it. But I knew there was something there. I love high fantasy. I love being epic and feeling cool. Savage Worlds always does that for me, because whenever it's the acing, right? I always call it exploding, but it's the acing. It's, I go for this action, and suddenly I get to be better than I ever thought I was going to be at it. Or, crit fail, and it's funny. But yeah, I knew it was something special, and when I first spoke with Shane and Simon, what feels like forever ago now, I thought it would be, I wanted to say the bee's knees, but that was really going to age me here. Awesome. And I have not stopped thinking about that since. Every time we do one of these, I get super excited. So yeah.
Nice. Buff Dragon asks, is Carrion Crown going to be more savage, utilizing more savage-specific mechanics instead of endless fights? Well, that's the other thing too. Is we do have to realize in the early days of the APs, they were all very much dungeon crawls, even if they weren't all in dungeons. So
it is. And when we first did Rise of the Rune Lords, and even some extent into Carrion Crown, Crimson Throne, too many C's. There was a lot of feeling out our relationship with Paizo and not making too many changes. Now they've been super thrilled with what we've done, and I think we've done great with the system. And so we've been able to utilize more and more. And so, for example, I think unless you fail at the social conflict, I think before you get into a real fight, there are, in the first book, a social conflict, a quick encounter, and 2 or 3 dramatic tasks. And even after that, we've found ways to use it. And even to that point, I've tried to put more groupings of enemies, right? So there'll be, when there's enemies in like a dungeon crawl, for example, right? Because part of it is dungeon crawling. It'll always be there. They'll be in the rooms, but I always try to now put a section that'll be R5 and R10 encounter, right? And it's like, when this triggers, the enemies in this room will see it and join it, on the second round of combat coming from behind, right? And so rather than having room and then a room and then a room, it's more easy to just do, here's a big fight. And then when there's something lone, it becomes more of, and sitting down with playtesters here, we do the fight. How did it feel? Okay, let's do it as a quick encounter. How did that feel? Okay, let's do it as a dramatic task if there is a reason for it. And so, for example, there's an encounter, just a minor spoiler, with a poltergeist. and it's in an infirmary, and it's just a fight, right? And so we did it, and it went down rather quick. But the thing that they included is there's like a lot of cool resources you can get in there, and throughout the rounds of the fight, because normally with Pathfinder it takes probably 5 rounds, 6 rounds, there's a chance to have it throw like some of these items at you trying to kill you, and it might break. And so what I did is I flipped that. Rather than being a fight as the focus and things might break, it was the cool things are getting broken as this thing comes at you. So it becomes more of a dramatic task if you see these potion bottles flying around and these instruments flying around. And it's a very short, I think, 2-round DT, but it's about what are you doing to stop this ghost while trying to save all of these resources lest you lose them all. And it's you're now having a more struggling fight. And so trying to take those things, those Savage Worlds mechanics, and use those in different ways. Yes is the answer. I just wanted to give more of an example than just saying yes.
Nice. So how does this compare to something like Ravenloft?
I don't know that there is a good way to compare it to Ravenloft. This is its own thing. I want to leave it at that. There are different opinions of Ravenloft, and some people aren't fans of Ravenloft, and some of us are warm on Ravenloft. I am not a fan of it. Is you know what? No. It is hard to compare. I don't like saying negative things, even if they are opinions. I think Ravenloft appeals to some people. It doesn't appeal to me as much. This still appeals to me, and I think it appeals to people who play Ravenloft. So I think it meets somewhere in the middle of your standard adventuring campaign and that feel. It's one of my favorite quotes for running a game. No matter what campaign you try to run, it is that theme plus comedy. It will always be that. And so this one has a lot of stuff that inspires fear or creepiness, or like, ooh, did I get implanted by a brain parasite that's going to explode out of my head? But you're always going to have that player who's making the Monty Python jokes and things that just kind of go with it. And so I think it does the horror well, even when that comedy gets added in.
Nice. That's a good answer. That's a great answer. The another thing I did notice how much of Carrion Crown is chunks in the books they're centric, and how much is an overarching plot? Like, some of the campaigns are very much long plot, others are thinly pearls on pearls on a string. So where does Carrion Crown kind of come in on that equation?
This one fits really weirdly in the middle of it. So it's been out long enough. I'm sure people have read stuff about it, and they know kind of how it goes. You can easily run a book as a self-contained adventure. It will have a beginning, a peak, and a resolution. But when you are running the campaign, that resolution is a plot hook that moves to the next book. And so the other thing that can come up is, and again, try to introduce these as little notes, just reminders for the GM, because there's a lot of stuff in it, right? There's a lot of lore. Hey, this also came up earlier. Players may want to seek out this. And so, there's an item that gets stolen in book 2. You don't find it in book 2. It is not necessary to get it in book 2. But it is one of those things that if you have a character who's a scholar or an archaeologist or something like that, doing the campaign, that can be his hook for moving on, not just the let's stop the cult of the Whispering Way from whatever they're trying to do. It is, and here's this other thing. And so you can do self-contained just fine and have a blast. I have different playtest groups that have done just one book, and they've been able to pick it up and be like, okay, here's a little bit of backstory that you need to know, and let's go. And they've been able to do it just fine. But the groups that go through the books are able to follow the connections from one to another. And so I think you can play it either way you
want. Oh, that's excellent. The let's see. The a good follow-on. So we've talked about how the individual 6 books relate to each other within this adventure path. Big picture for folks who are right, done Rise of the Rune Lord. They're currently going through the Crimson Crown. How do the adventure paths themselves relate to each other, and what advice or notes would you give to game masters for groups that are tackling multiple of these adventure paths?
So it's Crimson Throne, not Crimson Crown. I told you there's too many C's.
Royalty.
So this is, take a step back. This is separate from those other ones, right? You don't need to connect it in any way. It's its own horror thing. It's in a different area. You just run it as its standalone thing and don't have to worry about connecting it to the others. It is by itself. I keep glancing because we have somebody who's, I think, watching us from YouTube, who, like, as I'm answering it, he's like hitting the same answers, and I'm like, man, he knows what he's talking about here.
Yeah, is Shadow Chaser on our payroll? Yeah, it should be. It's still in Galarian, but like, Ustalav is kind of an area that hasn't really been touched on the earlier APs at all.
No, and it's very different. It's if you're going to view it as anything, it's kind of the evil area. There's literally, like, their largest capital is run by vampires. It is not a great place to live. And so it has a very different feel from the rest of the other APs, where, you may be against the evil queen, but the town people are just like, hey, you're a guy, nice to meet you. Here's some stuff, right? This one, you show up and they're like, I don't know who you are, but get the hell out of my tavern. And so it's kind of got a different feel that, steps outside and kind of out of your comfort zone. And as long as I think the players know going into it, this isn't the friendliest of locations. They're not caught off guard on, like, why does nobody like me? But it even gives your social characters that much more of a chance to be like, who loves me? And, like, make their character grow and shine. So yeah, I think that's, like, some of the big differences in why it just kind of steps away, both in vibe and in campaign difference.
Nice. So I've got one. I think I'll combine it with John Doom's chat. Like, playtesting is kind of a very big part of the Pinnacle design ethic. And so my question is, like, what goes into playtesting and being a playtester? And then I think, let me pull up John's questions. We got that one too. It's a weird different part of the chat, so I have to go like John's question. I know I do. So John asked, in your playtesting, what methods have you used to ratchet up the creepy or horror factor when having it played around the table with a bunch of gamers who generally are not easily horrified by GM descriptions of monsters? They're just going to roll dice at. So yeah. So what goes along with playtesting for publication, and then any tips for John on how to scare us on our Friday night game?
So they're tied. I have two very different answers though. So one, I use kind of two types of playtest groups. One is an encounter group, and one is a campaign group. And they break out in two different ways because some fights you have to run 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, right? To get how it feels. Some just are easy enough to do. It slides right into how it's supposed to work. But there's a lot of ways to come at it. There's a lot of edges. There's a lot of builds. There's a lot of weapons. There's a lot of stuff, right? So as you get later on, you really have to check all of these combinations. And so the players that I really focus on that are the groups that kind of do that work. Even when it was just the Bestiary 2, some people reached out and I had them do specific play testing on certain monsters that were like higher power level, the Marilith, for example, and talk about the things that didn't work or did work in the build, and then we made adjustments based on that. So those are all to try to get the encounters to work. Then there is the ones that I specifically run through the story and have to do the end of session. Why didn't you do this? Why did you do this? Did this pop up? Right? Because sometimes things don't flow the way you expect it, and game design has, changed a lot, since some of these books were, released. And so, even especially, campaigns like this one or Curse of the Crimson Throne, there's something that seems like it's a really good hook, but if a character misses a check, you just kind of miss out altogether, right? And so, being able to sit down, not just with players who are doing fight after fight after fight after fight, but the groups that go through the stories. And I'm like, hey, why did you not go to check on this? And they're like, oh, was I supposed to? Actually, a really important example. There is a section very, very, very early on, literally one of the first things that happens, where there's some dialogue that you're given to read, and you're meant to pause so that players can interject, right? And I tried doing that a few different times, but every time nobody interjected. And at the end, I'm like, why didn't you guys interject? And they're like, well, you were reading, you were role playing. We didn't want to interrupt you, right? And so it was one of those things that makes sense, give the players a chance to interrupt, but we all try to be careful on interrupting other people. And so the player aspect kind of just doesn't interact as well with that. And so it had to do a small change to make that function a little bit better for kind of how people play this day and age. So hopefully that answers some of that questions about play testing and, different ways to do it. As for John, there is no easy answer to this because, as I said, whatever you do plus comedy. I think the first thing you have to do is get away from that comedic stuff. Let the people get their jokes out and whatever is coming up beforehand. Whether it's a silly crit fail or somebody making a pun or a joke off stuff, let that run its course and people have fun. It is good to do ambient music or ambient noise is really fun to do. It just can't be too loud. But for descriptions, this is the biggest one, is sometimes putting a description or moving something slightly to interact with something bad that happens changes all. So, for example, if there is, coming from the next room, a minotaur that's going to come out. This isn't actually related to this, but it's an example, right? If the players are fighting in group and it would normally come into the next round, they'll just go, oh, a fight. But if you wait until somebody takes a wound or 2 wounds on a hit, right? And they're like, okay, I only soaked 1, I'm still hurt. Be like, all right, and make me a notice roll. And they're like, okay, why am I making a notice roll for this? And then they hear this bellowing roar come from the next room after they just realized they're at -1 to everything they do. It suddenly changes the mindset to oh crap, now I have to deal with this. Sometimes it's finding out what will affect one player more, and then the rest of the players grab onto that vibe. So if you have somebody that reacts a lot more to certain things like that gets kind of, oh, I'm really scared of this thing, or you get this description and they're like, oh, well, my character's afraid of doing this, it reacts poorly to this. Other players will very often just naturally jump onto that. Some will want to white knight it, right, and be like, hey, I'm here, nothing can get past me. But very often you'll run into that, why are you scared? Should I be scared? Okay, maybe I'll get scared, that kind of thing. And so rather than just using dice, using those moments to move into the next story beat is what I try to use. It doesn't always work, right? But when it does work, it feels really good. Not just as a GM, but I think for the players as well. I think what I get at my table more often than not, in I think it's a loving way, is are you effing kidding me? That's how they express their. I I got through a description once, and I got this blank stare from the one of the players who GMs a lot, because he knew exactly what they were up against, and he was just shaking his head. And he's like, "No, this is ridiculous." And everybody else is suddenly like, "What's ridiculous? What is in this description that I should be so much more worried about?" So yeah, I like that kind of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I like Boltonar's. I use voice modulation and sound effects. I mean, it helps when you've got a golden, crispy voice to start with. But one thing I've mentioned this a dozen times before, but I think it's still very good advice. But the Sean Preston, who did Realms of Cthulhu for Savage Worlds and a couple of really, really good things, played with at a con with him, and his his way to create horror at the table, one, it's a one shot. So he said, the bennies you start with are the bennies you're going to get. There are no more bennies. This whole, this 3-hour session, use them as you will. You'll probably die. And we were breaking out of an insane asylum, so yeah, most of us probably died. But to do what Mike said is to get rid of the everything is Monty Python humor to break the tension. Sometimes you want to keep the tension. So his rule was no talking to each other or jokes until breaks. And when we're at the table, you have to speak in character. No meta conversation. So everybody, we're in character, we're speaking to each other in character, and that really helped ratchet the tension up because we saved the Monty Python stuff until the bathroom break, and or we had to go away from the table, right? But at the table, and I know it's a little it's different now if you're not playing live or whatever, but that helps. That really helped on keep the humor separate, and then there was a whole lot of tension with everybody because, those bennies, you need them to soak if you're going to take wounds. And, we were all playing spongy characters who were like, we had no armor. We're breaking out of an insane asylum. So anyways, I think that was a very cool way to do it. I don't know how much that works over a long campaign because you're just going to kill your characters if you don't have any bennies. But in specific spots, in character conversation only, I think would keep the tenseness going a little longer. So
I think there's also a bit of trust involved. Like the best thing to do is yes and, right? Kind of like improv. And so if everybody is always, having a bad experience or failing, they're a lot more likely to hold on to like doing everything as good as they possibly can. And once they get used to, you're telling a story, sometimes the troll rolling down the stairwell falls on you and your friends have to help you out from under it. That is not you, failing. That is you in a rough situation, and your character is later going to have to, come back covered in gore and fight and, defend the group. It's a lot of give and take in that kind of storytelling. And I think the fear kind of fits in that give and take as well.
Good answer. So, a lot of the campaigns had like the add-on rules. So like Rise of the Rune Lord had sin tracking, Curse of the Crimson Throne had the harrowing. So is there an additional add-on rule for Carrion Crown?
No and yes. It doesn't have a campaign-wide one officially. So there is a trust mechanic that's in the first area. And then there is a lot going on with a kind of social event that happens in the second book. Each one kind of has its own thing that it introduces rather than an overarching one. They did include an option in the player's guide that they released, which for anybody who doesn't know, they released the player's guide after book one was even out, and they offered a different use for tarot cards, like completely different from Curse of the Crimson Throne. I would say if you wanted to do anything unique for this one, use adventure cards if you want to do more, right? The kind of once per book or once every couple sessions. But outside of that, each book has its own kind of little thing that it does. And also the other thing is we use, some of you might be familiar with the fear chart from the Horror Companion, because there's a lot more long-lasting kind of fear effects that go on that just come up different times. And so I think that is probably the biggest thing that we use that's different from previous campaigns is the updated and, in my opinion, improved fear chart. There's a lot of cool stuff that can happen with it outside of combat, which is kind of a big part of it, because there's just some areas you walk into and either it's supernaturally creepy or it's gory or things like that. And so that has effects on your characters. I have we have our paladin who now suddenly has a fear of heights as he stands on a rickety bridge over a waterfall. And so this is just something new that has come along. Also, he's got a lame leg due to a bear trap, but that's a completely separate issue.
The lame paladin, I love it. I missed this one like an hour ago. Todd asked about the Carrion Crown pawns. So we don't have the final list yet because one, it's going to be a 10-sheet pawn pack, which is as big as any we've ever done. So it's a lot of pawns. And then we've got some questions out with Paizo on some other stuff we might want to include on the pawn sheets. I'm not going to say what it is because if we don't get it, then you'll be mad. But depending on if that real estate is for something we want to do, or kind of extra copies of monsters or a different variety. So that's still in the air. So we haven't released a list of what's on the PDF or what's on the pawn sheets. But it is a 10 sheets of pawns, which is it's as big as any we've ever done. And it's priced less than that. So it's a really good deal for what you're getting. It's going to be a lot of pawns, a lot of monsters, no matter what. So we hopefully it's going to be very comprehensive for Curse. And very comprehensive for Carrion Crown, and then maybe some extra little fun. So so hopefully that answers the question.
There's in the Paizo version, there are a lot of variants of the same kind of creature. Minor spoiler: there is a book with vampires. One of the books is called Ashes at Dawn. You didn't kind of catch on to that, I'm sorry. But there's a lot of different vampires. And we do use some that are pretty specific. Like if there's a vampire druid that's iconic, characterful, right? There's a pawn for that. But then it comes to, do we need 10 different versions of vampire, right? Or do we break it down into like these 4 tropes that they kind of all fell under? And do we want the different pieces of art for those, or should we use one piece of art? So there's a lot of discussion with Paizo, as he said, on that. And so I want to say that it's a little bit harder on this one because we're trying to use both existing and or old and newer variant pawn pieces or art pieces for the pawns. So yeah, cool. Sadly, it's not an absolute yes.
After Carrion Crown, can we look forward to some fun fantasy or sci-fi plot point campaigns next year? Planning to run a Star Wars like campaign. I don't know that we've got anything for Pathfinder that's sci-fi. Do you want to talk about the next Pathfinder one that for next year? Is that I don't think it's too soon to talk about what our
we've mentioned it before actually, and I've brought it up. So next year we are doing Kingmaker. And we are not just doing Kingmaker. Paizo has given us the okay to do the updated 2E version with like all the nicer maps and all the updated stuff. Like if anybody has seen the book difference, right? Like their current one is like that thick, and the old one for just the first one was a tiny little almost pamphlet-like thing. I know we've got. If you're the person on Facebook, then I'm sorry. I warned you, no Iron Gods yet. If you're not, then you are the second person to be sad.
Yeah, the Iron Gods people are in the chat.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Okay, I don't. But people have been yelling for Kingmaker since I think we said we were going to do this, and I'm glad we held off and didn't do it first. Right? There's also, I believe, going to be a player use book, kind of like we've done with the other ones. We didn't do it for this one. This one's kind of a standalone to see, how people like these APs, and I think people like them relatively well. But yeah, it's all going to go into getting Skull and Shackles is another good one. I think that was like the 3rd AP I played back in the day for Paizo APs. And was it the Red Hand of God or something was the follow-up, I think. Somebody help me out on that if you know. Anyway, different fear chart has evolved. I like that. But yeah, so we want to keep grabbing these, keep making the really fun ones. I think all the ones I've played, I had fun. All the ones I've ran, I've had fun with. And I have a good group of players, right? And we play every Saturday. And every once in a while they'll ask, hey Mike, are you burnt out? Do you want me to run a few games? And I've had to tell them, playtesting Carrion Crown, they're my story group, has been some of the fun, most fun I've had, running any games, just because there's so much stuff going on. And I actually got players to investigate and be social, and like oh, spoiler, if only one player in the party doesn't have outsider as a hindrance, that player is by default your social character, and he better have a decent persuasion. Because man, going around the table and everybody being like, who doesn't have it? And it's like, me. Yeah, that's great.
So we're over our hour. So a few fast round of the so the fear stuff is going to be in this book. You don't need the horror companion to get the new fear stuff. Mike's got it in the book.
Yeah, and I think I talked to Simon, and he said we're able to do not just having it in the book, but like one of the sheets that we normally do, that's like a handout kind of thing that you can put on the table or put on your GM screen, depending on the type you're using. You will not have to buy another thing separate. Everything will be in this. The references, the fear chart, all that good stuff. So yeah, you're safe there.
Yeah, and then for add-ons, for our crowdfunding policy, we always ship everything at the same time. That way, kind of our even domestic and overseas people are kind of getting everything at the same time. But you do get the PDFs, the digital, as soon as we're able to give you those. So like, when the campaign closes and we get the go-ahead from the BackerKit, we send out the digital versions of all that stuff. Then. So I think if you want to do add-ons and you need to get them in your hands earlier, we suggest getting them from Peg Inc. And then I think we're going to also try to make some bundles available, like the kind of correspondence, because it's a little bit easier. But we currently have orders over $100 domestically get free shipping currently at Peg Inc. And there's a whole bunch of other cool sales kind of for the end of the year stuff. So there's some bundle sales going on. So check those out at peginc.com in the news section. I think outside of Pathfinder in the new year for Kickstarters, I think we opened the year up in a really big way with Deadlands, and that's all I'll say about that. And then, but there's always more sci-fi, because I don't think we haven't finished Lost Colony yet, and then the next one there is a thing. We're going to deliver the current one, like presently, either it's shipping now or close. So, but yeah,
the last thing I want to throw out, it'll either be before Kingmaker, but I know people have talked about it for a while. There will probably be one more update, specifically for the monk, that we've been doing some play testing on, and so I would say keep an eye out for that as well.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mike, for giving us a ETU2. Yeah, ETU2. I'm pretty sure the transcript's in on that, so he's got to figure out where on the docket to put that one in. So that's
next year's an amazing year. All right. Oh, yeah. I am so excited for everything we're putting on next year.
Right. I would love if we got the stuff. I mean, I didn't mind the old D6. That was kind of how I played my Star Wars, but like, we need Jedi in Savage Worlds.
My blind Jedi with a gravity hammer. Yeah. No. And honestly, I've had so many people say, like, Star Wars and Savage Worlds just go together so well.
Yeah. So that we don't have that license. I'm not even teasing. I don't even know who's got it right now. It's like it's a big Disney thing, so it's even more complicated now than I think it was then. But we don't have that license. But I do think if you pick up the Sci-Fi Companion, there's totally one of the and also the adventures that go along with these savage tales of science fiction. I did the Dune one. There's definitely a Star Wars-ish one in there with like energy weapons. So if you're dying for some Star Wars, go pick up the Savage Tales of Science Fiction with the Sci-Fi Companion. You can definitely do. I mean, we did so many archetypes for the Sci-Fi. I mean, so there's like 40. I don't know. There is a veritable universe of archetypes for the Sci-Fi Companion, and don't even get me started on like the edge cards. Oh my god, the edge cards was a thing we did that we're just like, oh, it'll be easy. There'll be like this many edge cards. The edge cards for like Deadlands are like that thick, and we ship them for like free. Oh yeah. Anyways, go look at the archetypes for the Sci-Fi Companion. there is definitely a like wanded energy, sworded, sabered, photon, lighty, something or other. Like if you need the help to make Savage Worlds make some Padawan killers, you can do it. So yeah, that's there.
I forgot I got this for
Oh my god. Now I'm
CARRION
jealous.
CROWN, right?
So good. So now you have to wear that for Halloween when you're running your game.
I absolutely am. It's a prop.
Awesome. The yeah, Space Wizard. Hint, hint, Space Wizard. It's there. And the Queen's Gambit. Yeah, I think let's see, did Jam Defogi do that one? But yes, yeah, there's some good ones in there. The look at that. See, everyone loves Queen's Gambit. That's not mine. But whoever wrote Queen's Gambit, excellent job. You're pulling fan favorite in the chat. So it could have been Brian's. I don't know. Anyways, it was probably good. Apparently, it was really good. So folks, thanks for the hour and 12. We've kept Mike long enough. The oh, John Stevens. Yeah. Okay. So John. So again, talking BTT, we were all on the phone with John this morning for more than an hour. So we'll have to let John Stevens know that everybody loves his adventure because he does some really good stuff for riffs. So I'm glad to see that you like the adventure. So anyways, folks, CARRION CROWN. It's got like 2 weeks left on BackerKit. So go tell your friends about it. That's the best thing you can do is post that you're a backer. This is kind of one of our first just an AP campaign, so we didn't throw in more core with it. So it's an experiment. We're always experimenting. We're always figuring it out. So we are very appreciative of all of the backers so far. I think we're over like 5,500, 5,700 already. So thank you so much. That's amazing for an AP. We're excited for you guys to get your hands on it. But I think it's, I mean, I'm speaking from a little bit of ignorance here, but it sounds like it's one of the most utilitarian APs if you just want like to pull some fun horror stuff off the shelves. Like I definitely think that the other APs in being more overarching story can be hard to get into if you just want to like, oh, let's just throw down some Savage Pathfinder. So this one sounds like everybody loves horror. Horror is absolutely our number one go-to theme. Well, button we always push a pinnacle. So this one sounds like it's very utilitarian to just have 6 books worth of. If you have a vampire book and a lycanthrope book and another undead book and a puppy on dewormer with bloodworms coming out of one of its orifices book. Awesomeness. If you ever just want to have that for your players for some fun things, I think CARRION CROWN sounds like it would be amenable to that sort of thing. So we hope you pick it up and enjoy all 6 of the books of classic horror and fun stuff like that. And I think it's about a month after we finish. So
yeah, the one thing I want to throw in on that is, as always, Paizo does a final check over everything. They're usually very quick in their turnaround time, but just in case we miss something, or there's a change they want to see, we then resubmit it and they'll, okay the change or whatever. So as Chris was about to say, usually about a month after is what we try to see. As with everything that we work with Paizo on, it has that final layer of approval. And so maybe I'm saying all this and it won't come up at all. Maybe it'll take a week longer as we wait for, they're at a con or they're working with something they haven't gotten back to us. So it's that one little variable that's kind of like a up in the corner, keep in your mind, but a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, so not too long after. And so yeah, thanks for giving us your evening. Have a happy Halloween. No one told us they're going to get dressed as, so hopefully you're all staying home and giving out a lot of candy. So we will catch up with you guys later. I think after CARRION CROWN, I think we're just have a nice quiet rest of the year and throw on some fun sales on Peg Inc. and kind of rest and recoup. And otherwise, thank you for all the questions. It was great. Yes, see, America does Halloween. Apparently, you guys do it on Reformation Day. So I just think getting more kids fat is a fun way to spend an evening. So that's just me. Anyways, I'm off to carve some pumpkins. Mike's off to prepare for his big epic Halloween game with props and crowns. And we hope you guys are off to play some Savage Worlds this week. So get out there, play some Savage Worlds, have some fun. Hopefully Halloween or Reformation Day is good for you and yours. And other than that, happy spooky season, everybody. And
thank you for your support.
Yeah. What? Dragonlance, man. Got all these licenses that I would just love. That would be really cool. We don't have that license, sorry, folks, but the oh look, wait. You show up now. You show up now, sir. Okay, so wait. I'm gonna take a minute because he shows up. Maybe someone pinged because look at. I just want to show you on the screen that it is. Oh, you were here. You saw it. You saw all the Queen's Gambit love. Look at all this stuff. Like, I mean, I wrote a whole adventure. I work for the company. No one mentions my one, but they're all over that one. So yes, the John Stevens got a lot of love in the chat. So happy Halloween.
Drama.
So on behalf of our VTT team, our Rights Adventures for Sci-Fi companion team, our board game. Oh my God, the board game stuff. We didn't even talk about board game stuff. Mike has done some really amazing stuff with Doomguard, and he is hard at work on some amazing stuff for Deadlands and others. So we're going to have a lot more Mike on because he's doing a lot of stuff for us, which is really exciting. And then on behalf of me, who wrote a little adventure for the Sci-Fi Companion that no one cared about and played. But anyways, happy Halloween, everybody. We'll see you when we see you. Cheers.
Bye, guys.